Super Mario Sunshine was first introduced during Space World 2001. A few things have changed since then, but unlike Super Mario Galaxy, a lot of the beta things were removed. However, not all of them. Let's start with what we've seen at Space World 2001. In this trailer we can see a changed HUD, and a monster that oddly doesn't even appear in the final game.
This monster is called Hina Curry. This indicates that this is the second version of a monster before it was finally scrapped from the game. If you translate Hina Curry from Japanese to English, you get Fire Chestnut, which is very similar to an enemy that is in the game already. A lot of the animations are still working, but if you were to bring it into the game itself, it wouldn't get displayed properly, as this monster was made for an engine version that was much older than the one in the final game. The final engine itself uses a scaling function to determine the size of an actor in the game. However, trying to use the in-engine scale function on this enemy results in nothing.
It doesn't change size, which is a small hint on how old this enemy actually is, as this seems to be one of the fundamental functions.
It also has animations for swimming in water, and looking closer in its file,
we can see that it was tagged as a boss and was even supposed to have functions based on whether you saw the boss already, a gravity modifier, and something called boss hide timer max.
It's unclear whether it was Mario hiding or the boss though.
However, this boss is not the only opponent that was removed from the game. Well, technically it was. This is because another unseen enemy is the Cug. Unseen, but not removed. This enemy floats under the stage of Peanut Park. Taking a look at the actor list, this enemy has 3 entries that all refer to Test Enemy. The team probably forgot about this enemy under the stage and left it there. If it ever had any animations, they got removed before the game's release. The last unseen enemy is the Douro Crew. This little fella here, which name translates to Mud Chestnut, has the same animations as the Hamakuru, and was also supposed to steal Mario's hat. While his counterparts, the Strolling Stew and the Flaming Stew, made it into the King Boo battle, this one never spawns. It would have been a little useless though, as its functionalities exist for other enemies already. Blue pads are squid-like enemies that spawn in Rico Harbor and are floating in water. However, its animation suggests that this enemy wasn't supposed to be in water all the time. Actually, looking at the game files again, we can see that this monster was supposed to spawn during the Boo boss battle. Apparently, this was the only spot where they were supposed to be seen on land. Talking about land and water, bloopers weren't meant to die immediately after getting pushed into water. They have an animation called Surf. But don't worry, we are aware that there are surfing bloopers in the final game already. However, these bloopers are different bloopers. It's unknown whether they made entirely new bloopers for the surfing. It could be that there were problems with the monster's behavior, but we don't really know. Let's get away from the monsters and take a look at some objects that didn't make it into the game. Let us start with the file select block. The block you see here is the official selection block. Actually, those are multiple models for the file selection. But looking at the files, there's also another file selection block. It was supposed to be a very familiar brick block from the Super Mario series. Looking at the game's files, it appears that the texture that was actually used was originally intended for when you had no memory card inserted. It is still interesting to think that this brick block was probably used up until a close point towards release. Let us have a look at this. Is that a ball? It's a random tiny ball in the midst of the game files of Super Mario Sunshine? Oh, good job, Nintendo.
Actually, this ball might not be as useless as it would seem in the beginning. This ball, with a marble texture on it, uses a 512 by 512 resolution, making it the biggest texture used in the entirety of the game's files. Despite this file being placed in the boss fight of Corona Mountain, looking at it gives us a hint that this ball was not actually intended to be used in the game.
Back when the GameCube was on its way and the first games were worked on, developers started looking into a new, for its time, pretty revolutionary technique.
Normal and bump mapping. And this is a strong graphics technique. It's even used up to today. In game development, normal and bump mapping is used to give objects and surroundings more detail, or for this time more importantly, to make edges smoother. And which object could be a better reference as a low poly ball? If we take a look at this ball, we can see that it uses both advantages of this technique. However, Super Mario Sunshine didn't use bump maps after all. It used normal maps to make the edges seem smoother, but that's about it. Actually, hardly any GameCube titles used this feature.
At the beginning of the video, we were talking about Space World 2001, where Super Mario Sunshine was shown for the first time. But there are still objects left in the game files back from this demo build that got scrapped afterwards. One of them being the ice cream cart. Yup, ice cream. It even fits the game's theme. It was a lovely cart with a fully functional springboard as a roof. If you were to hack it into the game, you could even jump on it. Then there's the box and the soccer ball here. Probably to give the game some holiday vibe when it was shown at Space World 2001. They got scrapped, however. But the concept still made it into the game where you had to kick fruit into a basket. So at least not everything got lost.
The last two things that can be seen in the trailer from 2001 are two ships. One is called Rico Ship and the other is called Rico Ship Log. While one is fully textured, the other one ended up losing all its textures. Looking at the Space World trailer though, you can see it for a split second, and it actually was textured back then. However, it seems like Nintendo decided to retexture the boat, and then scrapped it entirely before they could do so. Now the game only contains a model without a texture, and no one knows what it was supposed to look like. But at least there is still the Rico ship, which kept its texture. Still unused, but they tried.
Welcome to the end of the video. But sadly enough, the fun ends here. But if you want to have more fun, you can click the video on the screen right now. And if you want to have fun for a way longer time, then subscribe, because then you won't miss any videos. How great!